So everybody is going to talk about Pep Guardiola leaving Manchester City. And we all understand what Pep has meant to Manchester City, to the blue half of Manchester. But one thing is for sure. Pep Guardiola did not come to Manchester City when they were down in the dumps. That time Pep Guardiola came in, Pellegrini has won. What's his name? The other Italian manager had already won the Premier League. Man City had had 2 Premier League titles. But the man that we are talking about today, in Oliver Glasner, came to Crystal Palace when there was no even thought or conserved plan that they were going to win a trophy. It wasn't in their DNA. It was not in their makeup. It was a situation that they got talent and they sold talent. And that was Crystal Palace. They are managers who improve football clubs. They are managers who win trophies. And there are the rare few who change the club and believe and makes the club believe that the impossible is possible. For more than a century, Crystal Palace were just survivors in the Premier League. They were just surviving in the Premier League. They fought, they survived, and they upset bigger teams every now and then, and we all understood that part because they had the likes of Olise, Eze, Zaha, really good players. But guess what? It was never a situation that we expected Crystal Palace to do what they did in the 2024-2026 season. Nobody expected it. But they never knew, they never truly believed they belonged in the elite of football. Then in February of 2024, a man arrived from Austria. Quiet, intense, uncompromising. His name was Oliver flipping Glasner. And by the time he left South London, Crystal Palace has become something that they never was before. They become winners. And that is a very scary thought. Start with this. For years, Crystal Palace lived in football's middle ground. They were not going down, but they also were not doing anything worth celebrating. Not quite contenders, not quite relegation candidates, just existing, collecting the Premier League money and just happy to be where they were. Every season felt similar. They stay up, they sell their best players, and they repeat it all over again. The ambition of the supporters was bigger than the reality of what they were watching, of the reality of the owners, of the reality of the managers. Selhurst Park was one of the loudest stadiums in England, but the club ceilings was painfully low. You look at the likes of Pep Guardiola leaving, and they asked him what would be his stadium that he missed the most, and he did not mention Old Trafford. He did not mention Anfield. He did not mention Emirates. He mentioned Selhurst Park. You look at the departure of Roy Hodgson, and then Palace made a decision that would change their history forever. They hired Oliver Glasner, a coach who had already shocked Europe with Eintracht Frankfurt. A coach who did not care about reputations. A coach who looked at giants and saw opportunities instead of obstacles. Many thought Palace were risking hiring a manager that was unknown at one point. But in reality, Palace were about to discover what they have been missing all along: belief. And there comes the revolution. From the moment Glasner arrived, something changed. Not overnight, but it was undeniable. His message was simple: stop respecting everyone and start challenging everyone. It was quite simple. His aggressive 3-4-3 system transformed Palace from being a reactive team into one that attacked with courage and intensity. What followed was one of the greatest finishes to a Premier League season in club history. Palace won 6 of their final 7 league matches and matched the highest ever Premier League finish. Suddenly, players who looked good before looked extraordinary. Eberechi Eze played with freedom. Mark Gahey became a leader. Adam Watson emerged as England's one of the brightest lights that we have seen in a minute. And Selhurst Park started believing again. Not because Palace was winning every single week, because they looked fearless. For the first time in years, supporters were not asking, can we survive? They were asking, how far can we go? They gave them a cause to believe, and the impossible dream became possible. Then came 2025, the FA Cup, the competition Palace has never ever won. A competition that had brought heartbreak before in 1990 and 1991. Two finals, two painful endings. History suggested that Palace would fall short again. Then Oliver Glasner arrived at Wembley, and he wasn't interested in the history. He was interested in making it. After dismantling Aston Villa in the semi-finals, Palace reached only their third FA Cup final. Glasner praised the discipline and the execution of his players, who perfectly followed his tactical plan. Waiting in the final was the ultimate challenge. The mighty Manchester City, the machine, the dynasty, the team, everyone expected to win, but Glasner's Palace did not care. They believed. They defended with all their might. They defended with courage. They suffered together. They went compact. And when the moment arrived, they struck. One goal, one unforgettable afternoon, one miracle. Crystal Palace have defeated Manchester City 1-0 to win their first major trophy in the club's 119 years history. The scenes were remarkable. It was unforgettable. It was tears. It was disbelief. It was generations of supporters celebrating a moment that they never thought would arrive. Glasner called it a moment for their life. And he was right, because football is about memories. No manager gave Palace supporters a greater moment ever. Even Roy, that gave them moments where they survived relegation, did not give them a moment in Wembley that every single person will remember for the rest of their life. And Oliver Glasner did that. So they went from dreamers to absolutely winners. And most fairy tales would end there. Not this one, not Oliver Glasner. Because he went on winning one trophy can change perception. Winning multiple trophies then becomes to change the culture. Glasner didn't give Palace a special day. He created a winning mentality that he took on into the 2025-2026 season. A few months later, Palace lifted the Community Shield. That's 2 trophies in a couple of months. And then came Europe. And before Europe, they were meant to be in the Europa League, but for some football politics, Nottingham Forest took that spot and they dropped from the Europa League to the Conference League. But it was still Europe, the greatest adventure the club had ever known. Many teams are just happy to be in European competition. But Glasner wanted more. He wanted history again and again and again. And in 2026, Crystal Palace won the Europa Conference League, securing the first European trophy in the club's history. It completed the remarkable run that also included an FA Cup and a Community Shield success. Crystal Palace can actually say to Arsenal, you will never sing that right now, because they are European champions. They have been European champions before Arsenal. So think about that for a second. A club that have waited over a century for one major trophy, had multiple trophies, domestic silverware, European silverware in 2-year span, in an 18-month span by one manager. These are memories that would last forever, all under one flipping manager. He is arguably right now the greatest Palace manager ever, in my mind. You let me know what you think about him in the comments. Football supporters might debate this situation. Who is the best? Who changed the club the most? Who deserves the statue? Some arguments become impossible to ignore. Oliver Glasner arrived at Palace, a respectable Premier League club, and he left, and now they are trophy winners, European champions, believers. Even supporters began speaking about him as the greatest manager in the club's history, while players, fans, and club legends praised the winning mentality he brought to South London. But let's be frank to each other. Oliver Glasner, even though he did not leave in the terms that he wanted to, yes, he won, but he is not going out in a copacetic situation with the owners. The owners need to do the right thing, because his legacy wasn't only measured in the silverware, it was measured in the mindset that he set. It will be measured in how he removed the inferiority complex that Crystal Palace had. He convinced the players that they belonged. He convinced the supporters that they can dream bigger. And once a club learns how to dream, there is never looking back. You can never fully take that away from them. Yes, from now, Crystal Palace supporters will remember the goals, the trophies, the Wembley celebrations, the European night. But most of all, they will remember the feeling that Oliver Glasner gave them. The feeling that for the first time in their lives, anything is possible. Oliver Glasner arrived as in South London as a stranger, but he left as something much bigger. A manager, a winner, and a legend, and a man who taught Crystal Palace how to fly. Some managers leave, some managers leave results, while others leave history. Oliver Glasner left both. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.